So, hello everyone. Welcome to the Telnyx podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bracci, and today I'm talking to the wonderful Lily Clifford, CEO and co-founder of Rhyme, with a background in computational linguistics at Stanford. Lily has spent her career figuring out how our voices convey identity and emotion, and how to teach AI to do the same. So we'll unpack her journey from research to startup life, why most synthetic voices still feel flat, and how Rhyme is closing that gap so speech tech actually resonates with real people. Lily, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Michael. I'm excited to be on the first episode of the pod.
I know it's our very first one, and we're very excited to keep this going. You are calling us from San Francisco, correct?
I'm in Oakland today, but normally we're based in San Francisco.
And are you from San Francisco?
I'm from Orange County, California.
Okay.
So California for the entirety of my life.
Yes, it's California for life. I do love California. All right, so I think we can get started with some of the questions that I thought of. First off, as I mentioned, you started in linguistics. Correct me if I'm wrong, and specifically in sociophonetics. Can you walk us through how that interest started? Was there like a formative moment or influence for you that made you say, "Okay, I like this, and I'm gonna be doing this for me"?
I actually didn't. So when I grew up in Orange County, went to high school in Orange County, and then when I started college, it was actually the first time I had ever heard the word linguistics.
Yeah.
It was not something that I remember hearing about growing up. And at the same time, I was a pretty big reader, right? Like from an early age, and very interested in literature in high school and cinema. And so I weirdly enough, I think when I went to college and learned that there was this approach to studying language, and therefore, like, some of the things I had been thinking about around just, when you're like 16 and 17 and you're really into like Catcher in the Rye, you're like, what's the big deal? Why do I care about this stuff so much? And so really from first principles, I was like, this seems like something I'm interested in. And so I remember taking intro to linguistics and very quickly was off to the races. And at the same time, like going to a liberal arts college, I went to the Claremont colleges, like I was doing a lot of other stuff. I was taking computer science classes, I was taking creative writing courses, right, and ended up majoring in linguistics. I think partly because it was one of the majors that had the fewest course requirements. Like you take 32 classes when you're in college, and I think you only needed like 12 linguistics classes to major in linguistics. And so I was like, very selfishly, like, this is the major I can do that will allow me to take a lot of other classes as well.
Right. I remember in college as well. I mean, I took so many geology classes. I don't know why I didn't minor in geology, but that would have been sort of interesting to minor in geology and major in marketing. But anyways, that's another story for another time.
No, it was the exact same thing. Like I think I was like one class away from like 6 other majors, including computer science, creative writing. You know what I mean? It was like, at the end of the day, it didn't matter, right? Like no one really cares what your degree is in, unless you try and go to a PhD program, which I did end up doing. Yeah.
And so what was that goal there? I mean, what were you hoping to perhaps uncover or change when you started your PhD?
If I'm being completely honest, it was, I did the PhD, I think in many ways, like from the right perspective. Like I had my advisor, my undergraduate advisors, who I'm so close with today, like we're very much like, don't do the PhD if you think you're doing it in order to get a professorship, because again, like that's not a foregone conclusion. Do it because you like studying. I think I kind of had that perspective, and at the same time, I did it because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't want like quote unquote a real job, like software job. And I was really good at school. And so I applied to PhD programs. Honestly, that's kind of what my perspective was at the time. Is that the best reason to do a PhD? No, it's not the best reason to do a PhD. Is it the worst reason to do a PhD? No, it's definitely not the worst reason to do a PhD either.
Yeah. And so then you started your company. I mean, it's not exactly like a low stakes decision. What gave you that confidence, or maybe the push to take that leap?
I was at the time writing my dissertation proposal. I finished all my coursework. I was writing my dissertation proposal. And I think after 4 years, it dawned on me, like, the reason I started the PhD isn't the reason that was going to carry me to finish the PhD. You lose steam. And so I was thinking a lot about just speech technology. For what it's worth, like, I didn't plan on doing a computational linguistics when I started the PhD. I was pretty much more firmly within the kind of research ground of acoustic phonetics. And at the same time, you're at Stanford, it's 2018, deep learning is popping off. Like, my friends are reading deep learning papers. I'm like, I should probably like see what the hubbub is about. And very quickly I was like, wait, there are techniques here that will allow me to answer research questions that I'm interested in. And at the same time, like, as someone who really appreciates language and who really appreciates speech, I got really into the idea not from a practitioner's perspective, but the idea of text-to-speech, like synthetic speech. And the reason I was really into it was we've been immersed in it for a long time. I often joke that text-to-speech is like the OG generative AI.
Right.
I had been chatting a lot with my friend and now co-founder Brooke Larson, who was at Amazon Alexa at the time. We're kind of like small world. It's a small world, right? Like computational linguists who come from a PhD in linguistics background. And so she had come to the Bay at the same time to start working in tech at the same time that I started my PhD. We were chatting a lot. The problem at Alexa and at Google Assistant and at Siri, and this continues to today, is like, these products are boring. No, yeah. I mean, like, seriously, like, they can't do a lot today still, but at the same time, like, why do people not use them? It's I think first and foremost because you can't do a lot with them, right. But I think it's secondarily because they're very boring.
They can tend to be pretty boring. I mean, I have a Google Home at home, and I mean, simple tasks like Google, what does my calendar look like today, and it still can't do that. And I'm like, it's 2025, and you know, you've been working on this technology. Like, where is it? Make my life easier, and also a lot more exciting.
Yeah, and I think like it's why, by the way, I think like even today, I see like consumer applications in voice are popping off, and I think enterprise. Like, I was chatting with someone who does a lot of work in like AI agent infrastructure and orchestration. And even today, right, like, you can see, like, as far as AI agents go, it's still overwhelmingly like, and voice agents, it's still overwhelmingly like ChatGPT and
right.
Grok, like, in terms of overall volume today.
Yep.
And like, the thing that's in common in those is like people are having fun talking to them.
So when do we think this excitement is going to come? Is it soon, hopefully?
I think so. I also think, like, anyway, to answer your first question, like, how did I get into this? It was like, very first principle is like, when you call Verizon or when you call T-Mobile, or whoever you call, like, you shouldn't want to hang up. Like, I think exciting is one thing, but I think like the first step is just like not hating it.
Yeah, and be helpful.
Yeah. And so that's why we started the company. And to tackle that problem, we built a recording studio in San Francisco, and slowly and continue to this day collect a lot of data from people who come into our recording studio off the street, essentially, and lend their voice, right, like in having a conversation with a friend or family member, like to this overall proprietary speech data set that we've been building. And it's on the basis of that data that we started training models. And so, like, if you go to our homepage and you click try live chat, like, what you're hearing is like the voice of people. Really like a set of real people. And that's kind of our approach to solving this problem of like not wanting to hang up. It's like, when you call Verizon, you shouldn't hear like a 20th century American broadcast standard voice. And that's like today, like what people expect to hear when they talk to the Google Assistant, Google Home, or when they call like a business.
I know we have a quick fire segment a little later on, but I'm just so curious, like, what is your favorite accent? Like, of all the people that you've grabbed from the street, was there like an interesting moment or an interesting like person or human that you were like, this person's, speaking language and voice is very, very interesting to me?
I think there's a ton of those. I also have found that like the voices that are interesting to me might not be the voices that are interesting to you. And I think like every time we like have a data push, there's always a set of voices that I'm like, wow, this isn't a kind of voice that we've collected before. I think that's what's the most interesting thing about it, is how infinite it is. And so in that sense, like we'll never be done. And language is changing all the time, right?
Absolutely.
Like I think, and so the way that people talk right now is not going to be how they talk in 5 years. And the set of like perceptions that we have about those ways of talking are not going to be the same in 5 years as they are today. And so pretty much an endless problem.
I know there's like new languages popping up. I know I read something about Miami, for instance, where the Spanish and the English language is merging, and they're building their own sort of sense of like a unique language just within that city or metropolitan.
Yeah, so imagine like people in Miami talking to Google Home.
Right, exactly.
Like how different that is from how they talk, right?
Absolutely. And you're right. I mean, there's just an abundance of different backgrounds, different people coming from different places. Myself, for instance, I mean, I was born in the Philippines. I was there till I was 15. So I had that, that language, but then I'm biracial. So I was learning English at the same time as I was learning to speak Filipino. And then when I was 14, moved to Singapore, went to a British school, and then, getting all of that type of nuances of the English British language, and then moving to Puerto Rico, and then moving to Florida. So you're right. I mean, it's like different languages and different accents. It's unlimited.
No, it's unlimited. Imagine if you're building a voice application, right? Like for, any given purpose, like the IVR system for anywhere, or like a voice agent for anywhere. And the status quo is like, which of these 5 voices that are on offer from Google, Microsoft, or Amazon that are quote unquote North American English accented should we use?
Yeah.
Exactly. And they all, by the way, sound kind of the same and also very boring. Like that's like the problem that we're trying to solve.
Right. So speaking of rhyme, trying to solve some of these problems, going into your company and your philosophy within your organization, walk us through like what's something from your linguistics background that you feel most founders or engineers miss when building conversational AI?
What's something that I think is, oftentimes like it's not just about linguistics, right? But I think there's this, and generally in 2025, there's not a lot of people building voice ML models that even have experience with voice data. So like, not like you have people who are used to training LLMs, right? This like text-based model. And then you're like, there's a very like engineer mindset, by the way, that goes into all this, which is understandable. Where they're like, oh, we can do this, so we should do this too. Right. And so like, I would say 95% of the things I see that come across my feed where it's like, this is game-changing voice stuff, there's like something very fundamentally wrong with their approach. And that fundamental problem is due to the fact that these people have never dealt with speech data. And like speech data is so different. And so like, even just the shape of the data, the kinds of data you collect, the fact that, right, like there's not a lot of available data, like the engineer mindset, I think is one that I don't necessarily have. Like, I think I approach a lot of these problems as like a product person first and a linguist second, and maybe an ML engineer third. And so even just something like, let me give you an example, right? Like there's this move towards like open source text-to-speech models. And like, if you're an infrastructure provider, you're an Amazon, it's really exciting. This open source stuff is really exciting. And so you want to serve an open source text-to-speech model. And what I always tell people is like, yeah, they're quite good. But if you want to ship these for one of your customers, what you're going to end up doing is doing a bunch of professional services. Like 5 times a day, someone's going to come to you and say, this word is mispronounced by the TTS model.
Yeah.
And like, people don't think about that today when they're like, oh, this is a really exciting open source text-to-speech model. They're not like thinking like, is it going to pronounce T-Mobile correctly?
Right.
Which is like,
you think about that.
very much so. Like when we're building a product, we're like, it doesn't matter how lifelike the voice is. It doesn't matter if it does voice cloning. It doesn't matter if it's really fast to perform inference. If it can't pronounce gordita, then Taco Bell can't use it.
Exactly.
Right. And I think beyond that too, like we know that the people who are the teams of developers who are building these applications, they don't themselves even know the international phonetic alphabet, which a lot of models like from the cloud vendors support, right? Like custom pronunciation. So then the question is like, if it can't pronounce gordita, yes, there might be a way to customize it, but if our customers don't know how to use it, that also is kind of a deal breaker, right? And so like, I think a lot of times we think about this, like, how can we take our linguistics expertise and expose it, right? Like, how can we train models that allow for these capabilities? And then how do we create tools that expose those capabilities to our users?
Great. So when did you know that Rhyme had traction? Was there a turning point for you when you said, okay, this is heading somewhere and somewhere really, really good?
I think it was when we were, it was interesting. Like we essentially took like the path that we've taken towards product market fit was very different from a lot of AI companies, and that and for better or worse, we kind of took more of an enterprise sales motion to this.
Yeah.
And so unlike like some of our competitors, it's been more like creator or prosumer focused, where like people are logging in, making YouTube ads, TikTok voiceover, right? Like we were very much like, let's talk with a bunch of teams who are building really high volume calling applications, figure out what problems they're trying to solve for them, and then maybe they'll become our customers. And so like we quite literally went from like 0 API volume to like 6 or 7 million API requests in a day once it was turned on, like at scale. And so I think it was when we were like, wait, we're powering like 25% of all Domino's, like the voice that customers hear when they call Domino's.
It's a lot of pizza.
A lot of pizza. And I still have this revelation today too. Like I was talking with someone, the elevator operator in our office, and he was like, he'd been seeing us for years, literally at this point, and he doesn't know what we were doing. And I explained to him what we were doing. He's like, so it's like, it's like AI voice. And I'm like, yes, I don't really know what that means, but yes, it's AI voice. And I was like, no, you can call, I mean, I literally was like, you can call Domino's. And he was like, really? And I was like, yeah, let's call Domino's right now. And I called Domino's for the first time. And I heard our voice and I was like, oh yeah, this is pretty real, actually. Anyway, there's a bunch of, like, there's so many more customers I can't name. But with every one of those that we get, like, I'm like, oh, this is a business I've called before.
Yeah.
And now
realizing that it's,
that's I think continually dawning on me.
How does that feel? Like, again, you know, you calling Domino's for the first time and then hearing, you know, your product, or, you know, what you've worked hard for, hearing that, and actually for the voice to be working and to be having that conversation with you. How does that feel?
I'm a very unsatisfied person. Like I think many entrepreneurs are very fundamentally unsatisfied.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And so I'm like, Domino's, that's great, but what about this prospect that's in our pipeline? You know what I mean? Like,
do you need to pick though? Like when you call Domino's, were there like maybe words or pronunciations that you were like, okay, this could be better, this could be improved on?
I mean, that stuff pops up all the time. Like, I think we've been really lucky in that the design partner, like, I can tell you, for example, like, I've had so many customer discovery calls that if someone that I talk to responds in the negative to the question, do you ever run into the bot mispronouncing a critical word, whatever a critical word means for you, right? I can tell if they say no, that they're not powering more than 10,000 phone calls a day. Like if you're powering more than 10,000 phone calls a day, this is a problem you've run into.
Right.
And so definitely there's always going to be those things. Like Domino's has probably coined 5 menu items, like that are, from my perspective, are totally bonkers. Like whether it's pizza extravaganza, or I think Pizza Hut has shakaroni after Shaquille O'Neal.
Right.
Like that's always going to be the case. And so like, I feel lucky in that I haven't had to think about it because we've created ways of making this like a self-serve problem for our customers. so that they don't have to bug us. Again, this comes back to the professional services thing. Like, they don't have to bug us and be like, not bug us, but like, we're always adding words to our dictionary. We're adding hundreds of words to our pronouncing dictionary for our MIST model every day. And proactively in many cases, like, we've had customers that churn from a competitor because they're like, hey, my main customer is located in Pflugerville, Texas, and the solution that I'm using today can't pronounce Pflugerville. So to answer your question, 100%.
Yeah, all the time. Great. A couple of questions around sort of your leadership and culture at Rhyme. How do you think, your background in language identify or inform your leadership style, or does it at all?
I think it does and it doesn't. I think there are probably bigger things that impact my leadership style. I think first and foremost, like, and this I think is a strength and it's a weakness, and it's something I'm learning about all the time, is I've never even had a software job before this.
Oh, wow.
So like, I'm managing teams of ML, like, at a distance at this point, but like still very closely. ML engineers, software engineers, right? Like, and there's a lot that I've had to learn just from like a project management perspective. The way that you do research and the way that you build a product, it turns out, are very different.
Yeah.
Very different. And I think that outsider perspective is very helpful. And at the same time, I suppose like that, plus the fact that, how would I put this? I don't often feel imposter syndrome, but at the same time, like, I am learning how to manage teams of software engineers as basically someone who doesn't come from a software engineering background. And luckily we have a lot of people in our corner that help us do that at this point. But anyway, I think it's not really an answer to your question. I think what I'm trying to say is, like, there are other contributing factors rather than my background as a linguist.
Yeah.
That change how I think about leadership.
And what lessons have you learned building a small but mighty team?
I think the lessons that I've learned, oh my God.
I'm sure there's a lot.
I just, like, every day, right? Like, I think
every day.
Maybe the overarching lesson is, like, try to make every week 5% better than the last week in whatever, like, in every way, right? Like, some weeks you're going to be 5% worse at one thing, 10% better at another thing, right? And hit your target on every other thing. Other weeks you're going to be 5% worse at everything, right? And like, I think just the general trajectory is, like, be better every week. And so, like, I think that's the overarching lesson. It's just,
I mean,
it's a lesson to all lessons, right?
We'll quote you on that. Absolutely. That's a great lesson. Moving into the future of speech AI, you've talked about skipping text entirely and going speech to speech. What does that actually mean, and what does that future look like?
I think what it looks like, it doesn't look fundamentally different than the way that people are building applications now. I think the same way that you're doing a lot of prompting and fine-tuning of large language models, both very large and in some cases only kind of large. Like, we have customers, for example, of, like, depending on the sophistication of the application, like 15 to 20 very small fine-tuned large language models that are, like, handling each part of the interaction. I think a lot of that work will continue. And at the same time, like, it should be in the service of making these applications better. So what do I imagine speech to speech getting us? More naturalistic, right? Like, back channeling from the bot. I don't think we see this today. Like, imagine if you were saying something, you're like, oh, and I was hoping to get, like, a large pepperoni pizza, 2-liter bottle of Coke, and the bot is like, yep, like, while you're talking. Like, that doesn't exist today.
And that's,
like, in that very
yeah, we do that all the time. We say we say yeah.
No, and if you don't do that, depending on the culture that you're in, right? Like, if you don't do that, the conversation, no matter how lifelike the voice is, how good it responds, like, how good it understands what you're saying and responds to your intent, no matter how you do that, the conversation is going to feel weird,
awkward,
because you don't know if it's understanding you or not, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so that, I think, is, like, the big the big lift in terms of the big thing that's like a speech native way of building these products gets us, what that gets us is an application that feels better. It doesn't necessarily, I think like what you're seeing right now is like speech models today are simply dumber than their text equivalents. And so today they're not more capable.
Mhm.
But as they become as capable, what you're going to see is like the difference isn't necessarily that like they're better applications from an understanding perspective, from an execution standpoint. You're just going to see that people are willing to talk to them because they don't feel as weird.
And what do you think is the next big thing when it comes to voice AI in the next couple of years? What should we be looking forward to?
I really think, I imagine like under this paradigm, like a speech-to-speech paradigm for building an enterprise application, I do think the first approaches to this are going to be relatively bespoke, right? Like we're going to create large synthetic data sets of duplex data using large language models and text-to-speech systems, right? That are relatively like tuned to a particular application, whether that's like ordering pizza or, scheduling an appointment. I think in the future, I can imagine a voice interface for creating voice interfaces, right? Like you should think about this in the same way that we think about large language models. They need to be prompted and fine-tuned. And so like what I see as the future of doing that, it should be voice native, right? Like how can a model understand how to pronounce Whataburger if it doesn't hear Whataburger? And so that's what really excites me is like new ways of creating these applications. Like they essentially, you're not going to be typing to create these. This sounds galaxy brain, but I think it fundamentally has to be true. Like you will be talking to create these applications because it's the only way to create them. Because there's no text involved, right? I don't know how else to put it.
I see it. I see a future of us talking to create assistants that talk for us.
And like, and if you're a manager, like I can imagine, like this also sounds galaxy brain, but I think must fundamentally be true. Like if you're like managing a Domino's pizza, you should be able to call the system that takes the order for your customers and say, hey, next time you chat about this, here's how you should talk about this menu item, or like, here's how you upsell someone, or like the same way that we coach.
Right.
Like anyone that we work with.
Yeah. Why can't we coach the AIs the way we coach humans? I mean, yeah,
Literally.
That's a very interesting concept. It could catch up soon.
I think like the only thing that unlocks that is like speech native models for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. We're almost at the end of our session with Lily. I wanted to ask you a few quick bonus rapid fire questions. If you could entertain us. Thank you.
Lightning round.
Yes, lightning round. Linguistic quirks. What's your Tolkien cellar door?
I really like all these like sound symbolic. Do you know about Kiki Booba? Do you know about this?
No.
Have you heard of this before?
Is that a real word?
Well, it's two words, Kiki and Booba. Well, no, they're fake words.
Okay.
Like if you show people two shapes, this is like a classic study. It's a very reproducible. I show you a shape, right? It's kind of flat, amorphous. It's like a shape like a cloud. And then I show you a shape that's like a spiky ball.
Mm-hmm.
Which one's Kiki and which one's Booba?
Oh, yeah. The spikes would be Kiki.
Spikes, obviously Kiki, right?
Yeah. That is crazy. Okay.
We have a lot of these like sound symbolic. It's like a sound symbolic kind of effect. And so like, I don't necessarily like one phrase, but I think about a lot of these phrases. Like, why do we think that moist sounds moist? Why do we think that there's a quality of the word raw, right? Like RAW.
Absolutely.
Like, what is that quality? And I think very interesting thing about speech itself is like, we have this notion that the symbol is not really related to the sound. Like the thing that we refer to isn't related in any way to the word. I think that's one thing that's very true about language in many ways, but not so true when you think about like our associations with sound. Anyway, that's why, by the way, people like cellar door. It has this quality.
Right. Word you love but can't work into a conversation.
Word I love but I can't work into a conversation.
I mean, you're a linguist, so I'm sure you can work any word into a conversation. But maybe there's a very difficult one that you really try.
Oh my God. I think I have so many of these, like didactic. I think that's an amazing, all these kind of,
Yeah.
these words that like, if you included in conversation, you would come off as a douche. And that's my main problem.
Most used filler word in your own speech.
Did you know this? This is like one of our most popular one of my most popular LinkedIn posts ever. There's like a huge gender difference in and like
Oh, really?
across all words. Every word you could possibly say. The biggest gender difference is in and So like men overwhelmingly say like 80-20% to and women overwhelmingly say to like 80-20%. Why that's the case, we don't know.
Don't know. Favorite accent?
This is, as a linguist, like you're trained, like, you know, all accents are equal, all languages are equal. We all have this innate linguistic capacity to learn any language as a baby, right? Like that one language is more complex than another. And at the same time, I really like Australian accent.
What is it? Or no. That's my.
This is gonna sound so bad, but there's something very cute about it.
It's a very interesting language. I would agree. What is your least favorite word to hear?
No.
No. All right, final round, either or. Whisper or shout?
Whisper. Much more complex stuff going on whispering, I think, than shouting, yeah.
Interesting. Slang or formal?
Slang. That's the only way we know really how to talk.
Yeah. And uptalk or vocal fry?
Both at the same time. Just kidding, it's impossible, actually. But I think, by the way, like uptalk, no one talks about it anymore because we all do it.
Yeah. It's like, embedded. Yeah.
No, literally, like the stuff that people that rises to the level of like social consciousness and like metalinguistic commentary, it's too late. This is what I find so fascinating about like the kind of like, and by the way, weirdly enough, you don't see a lot of this in the last 5 years, and I don't know why. Like vocal fry seems like a very like 2015 set of social concerns. I don't really know what the like metalinguistic commentary of 2025 is, but I also think maybe we just got used to the fact that like,
I think we got used to it too, and perhaps as you mentioned with similar with uptalk, I mean, it's been embedded now where it's a part of the norm, I think. And it's
literally like presidents, senators, everyone does it.
Well, that is it for our bonus rapid fire questions. Lily, thank you so much for your time. Fantastic. Great time speaking with you. And we wish you the best with writing.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on, Michael.
Have a great one.
You too.